you're in control of your own future, and the only thing that's limiting you is the thoughts that you have about what you're able to accomplish. So you believe in what you can do, the possibilities are limitless.
There is a world of possibilities out there for us, that we all have the ability to do any kind of work that we want. And I really feel that empowering every physician to do the work that they're most inspired and purposely led to do.
In business, you have to allow people to make decisions and make mistakes so they can learn from them and grow. And what we all need to understand is the only thing that limits us is what we know. And more importantly, what we don't know. That's the only limitations we have. I would say think big, take big risks, and don't wait 1 minute to do whatever it is you want to do.
We get in control of our agenda, and we can script that family time, right? You can schedule every evening, from 8 p.m. There's no reason to take business calls after 8 p.m. because you're not going to make great decisions anyway. So like you said, shut the things down, have a power routine, and do family stuff.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert, is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. Today, we're going to break down a couple of powerful topics: STRs, tax optimization, how leaving your current W-2 and doing things such as locums and telemedicine can completely upscale and 10x your income, and how to live what my good friend and guest Ryan Mallory calls halftime freedom. If you're ready for this level of opportunity, buckle up. This is going to be a good one. Ryan, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thanks for having me, Vikram. I'm really excited to be here and talk about all this.
Locums have been around for, decades. And initially it was for people who ended their career. They just wanted to have fun and retire and stuff like that. Then it became for people who were not fit for the mainstream because, behavioral issues or, they got fired. And so it's like when you go there, you can never come back to mainstream medicine. Have these stereotypes of locums changed, and how do you see it as almost a holy grail that doctors can tap into?
I think it's completely changed. I think the pandemic helped fuel that, where I wasn't the only one looking at the being a W-2 employee and realizing that work was encroaching on lifestyle. And so locums has now become an opportunity for regaining autonomy, regaining control of your schedule. I think there were a lot more cardiologists, other specialists that were in private practice had a little more control over what they wanted to do. But as the pendulum swung and everyone became an employed physician, I found I had to ask permission to just get half a day off, and sometimes spend a morning juggling just to free up some time. Whereas now with locums, I schedule my family events first and then my work around it. Part of it is due to the physician shortage. In cardiology alone, I think 25% of the population is over 60. They can't train new cardiologists fast enough to make up for the demand. So there's a lot of places that aren't big cities that need somebody to keep their doors open for heart attacks. And so I said, rather than commuting an hour, what if I fly and I stay somewhere for a couple of days and then come back? But when I'm back, I'm completely off. I'm completely present. And once I started looking into it, there was tons of opportunities available. I found the right locums company, and now I work 12 days a month. And the rest of the time I'm home completely present with my kids, doing all the stuff that I was really missing out on, that connection. I have a 7 and a 4-year-old. I'm like the coolest person to them right now. That's not going to last forever. Yeah. I'm hoping it will, but at least right now, I want to be as present and involved as possible with raising him, and being an amazing husband for my wife as well. And I've been able to tip the scales back in favor of the priorities I have with my life.
So, if I'm understanding this right, you did research, your wife was asking really powerful questions and it made you second guess the path you're on, you started finding people who've done different paths and they're very happy and they're more the lifestyle you want. Now, when you started exploring locums, did you feel like you're sacrificing income, or you have young kids? People are like, oh, I can never do locums. I have young kids, or I have, how are all those challenges? How are you able to navigate those?
Well, first I was worried about the time being away from family. It's like I'm trying to spend more time with them, but I'm going to be gone longer. But then I looked at how many hours a day was I truly present and with my kids, and it was 1.5 to 2 hours at the end of the day. I said, okay, if I take 5 of those days, that's 10 hours of time, and I'm gone. But then the next week I'm back, and now I'm waking them up, I'm getting them ready for school, taking them to school, picking them up, taking them to practice, spending the evening with them. The amount of hours that you are actually with your kids and spending time with them and being their dad, and not being distracted by what's going on your phone or what is waiting for you on your computer, it's so much more. So that was one thing that I got over. The other important part is we got some family support. My mother-in-law, moved in with us, and she's been instrumental in helping take care of things while I'm gone, and my wife is working full time. But when we got that support system set up, I started going away, and I asked my daughter every so often. She's like, "I'm so much happier with what you're doing now compared to before." So it's just great to hear that from her. That I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but she's also recognizing that as well. So that kids realize quality more than quantity. They're very intelligent, and I'm getting more quantity, and the quality is just so much better.
Yeah, I wrote down, not only did you increase quality, but you increase quantity, even though it seems paradoxical. The other thing was, if you have family, great, but I'm assuming you either made more or same amount, but half the time. And so with that, you could potentially hire someone else to help if you needed to, right? So there are optionalities. If you want to make it work, you can make it work. So let's talk about the income. Do you actually get higher reimbursements doing this?
Absolutely. And that was the other thing. I've been focusing on family, but on the work side, I go to work, and if I've got a long day, I've got a base rate, and then I've got overtime. So if I have to stay there late, I'm getting compensated for my time. And I had last week I had a 14-hour day, and I compared what I made as a salaried interventional cardiologist. I looked at all the procedures and patients I saw, and looked at if I was in an RVU-based model. And then I looked at what I made as a locums. And as a salaried interventionist, I would have made 30% more as an RVU based interventionist. But with my locum shift, I actually made almost 3 times as much for that day as I would have.
So give me an example. What is it like? What's the delta like?
So, I mean, we're looking at $3,000-$4,000 for a day's work when you're, really having a tough day, which was a typical call day for me. And that was additional income that I earned. And I found that I wake up the next day sleep deprived, but I feel a lot better about it because I was I was helping someone, but I also was taken care of. And so I show up different for my patients. I'm happier. I'm not rushed. I'm not incentivized to try and see as many as possible. So I'm answering a lot more questions for their families. I've had a lot more people ask me to be their cardiologist because they're realizing stuff that they didn't figure out before. And it's almost like a preventative type consultation rather than doing procedures. But I'm doing what's best for them. I love being in the cath lab, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to impact people's lives.
All right, guys. Imagine if you could live anywhere in the world and still be a doctor. That's exactly what our next guest is here to teach us. She is the Nomad MD. Her name is Dr. Kristine Goins, and she is going to unpack exactly how to live anywhere, work anywhere, have time freedom, lifestyle freedom, and live your best life. So welcome, Kristine.
Thank you for having me.
The only currency in the world that you don't know how much you have left of, that you spend at will, is time. And so it's in most cases a non-renewable resource. Sometimes you can, learn from other people and not go down 10 years of, nonsense to get to your goals. And so there's pathways to power. So I think Dr. Goins has figured out some of that. And she's actually acted upon that. And now she wants to help others. And hence she's created her brand, Nomad MD. So, I know you help doctors figure stuff like this out, but I'm sure there's the top 3 to 5 reasons why they can't do this. Can you share with our audience here the typical BS reasons why they can't pull this off, and what is your strategy to help them overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say one of the biggest ones, like one of the most common ones is, but what about the money? And I had this one as well. For me, it was like, okay, but what about my student loans? How would I afford to be able to travel, as a doctor? And what I did, and I do this with my clients as well, what I did is I took that self-limiting thought and I decided to flip it on its head. I decided to ask myself, how could you make traveling the world the way that you fast track your way to financial independence? And that question was a much more productive question for me, because once I asked myself that, I was able to figure out all these strategies that were able to make that come true. So I think it's really about taking the questions, the doubts that we have, those thoughts that immediately come up for us, like, but I'm a family, so I can't do this, or but I have, specialty in this particular area of medicine, so I can't do it. Those are things I hear about most commonly, but all of my clients have found ways that with their family, I work with anesthesiologists, I work with hospitalists, I work with radiologists. It doesn't really matter what your specialty is. What really matters is you having clarity on what it is that you want to do, what type of life you really want to live, and then having the commitment to taking the first steps towards that dream.
And, to that point, it's about reframing. You've taken the concern, the limiting belief, the head trash, as I like to call it, and you're like, what's a way where I can actually make it a win versus a hindrance, right? And that reframing, I could tell you've put time and energy into your own mindset, and you've come out of from depression and worry and burnout to this Phoenix person who's like ultra resilient, optimistic, and always looking for the solutions versus the problem, right? They say the goal is 95% on the solution, 5% on the problem, which is beautiful, and you figured that out. So you say time is one big one. Money could be another one. Now, for those procedural-based practices, is there a strategy you recommend?
Yeah, for physicians who really want to focus on procedures, like let's say even surgeons who may want to keep up their surgical or procedural skills, who still want to be able to live anywhere, a lot of times what I suggest to them is doing a hybrid. So they can have certain months of the year where they're going to be in person, doing in-person work, whether it's, in the States, if they're US based, because I work with doctors that are outside of the United States as well. But whether it's in the States or whether it's in other countries, that's something that they're interested in doing. But in one of these other months that maybe they're location free, they can focus on either not working at all if they want to set themselves up that way, or they can focus on those aspects of their business that they can just do remotely. So they can do it both ways, and they don't have to, make it an either or. They can always make it an and.
Yes, I love that. Stand for the and, as they like to call it. And then the goal is, not like if or like, a lot of people say there's a tyranny of the how. You're like, instead of how you need to have a powerful enough why to figure out a compelling how. And then that's where people like you come in and say, hey, look, here's some patterns of success that I've already seen. Would one of these patterns work for you? Right. And then they like, oh, it could work for them, but what about me? And then that's when you can show that. That's when you give them the belief systems and things like that to help them get there. That's awesome. So what are the top places you've lived or visited?
I would say here, because right now I'm here in Cape Town, and I would have to say it is one of the most beautiful cities in the world that I've ever lived in. It's just gorgeous. Another one of my favorite places to live is kind of my home away from home, because I'm really not in the U.S. very much, is Bogota Toro, Panama. Just hanging out on the beach with dolphins and riding my bicycle around the islands. It's just like, to everyone there, it's just normal life. But for me, it's like, I'm in paradise. So those are like my favorite places.
And I'm super excited and pumped to have my good friend, Greg Dickerson. Greg is a phenomenal real estate investor, entrepreneur, and just overall crystal ball of where the economy could go. And he's advised us at Viking Capital and helped us get to 7 and 8 figures worth of growth. And I wanted to bring him on this podcast to just give you guys insight on, hey, what's going on with this, political climate, economic climate, and all that kind of thing. He has a very interesting backstory, which he'll briefly get into. And he's going to share with us also what's the right strategies and how we're going to invest moving forward in 2022 and beyond. So, Greg, welcome to the program.
Hey, Vic, thanks for having me. Good to see you.
I have a lot of doctors who are high performers in many different categories. They're physicians, they own practices, they're successful and sometimes doing side hustles in real estate and other things. What do you think are maybe the top 3 skills that these kind of, entrepreneur physicians need to be successful moving forward?
Yeah, so as you know, I work with a lot of medical professionals in all kinds of disciplines all over the world. The number one thing that they need to work on first and foremost is their people skills. Like a lot of medical professionals, super intelligent, way smart, very skilled, but they lack people skills in the sense of leadership. Those core essential leadership skills, which are communication, empathy, and then more importantly, delegation. And the hardest thing to do for a lot of people is to understand how to delegate effectively and efficiently. Bringing the right people in, putting them in the right position, and letting them do their job. Now, in the medical profession, a lot of different ways, you can't let people make mistakes, right, with certain things. But in business, you have to allow people to make decisions and make mistakes so they can learn from them and grow. And I think that's the biggest area where medical professionals kind of disconnect because they're afraid to let people make a mistake. Because in your world, if somebody makes a mistake, somebody can lose their life. In business, it's just a little bit of money or something. So those are some of the areas that I find that medical professionals really need to focus on, is those people skills, those communication skills, the leadership skills, which really boils down to delegation. Leadership comes down to delegating efficiently. In other words, you need to remove yourself from the organization. It needs to run better and more efficiently without you than it does with you. And you need to empower people to make decisions, make mistakes, and grow and scale that organization for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's exactly, he's helped us in our organization. We, my partner and I, Ravi, in our company, Viking Capital, we came in as like, hey, we're sort of solopreneurs, sort of a small mindset attitude. And we had big aspirations, but we thought we had to do everything. And what the number one thing I've learned from all the business books, the strategists, mentors, and coaches has been learning to create the business system. And it's not a solopreneur. I'm not a super specialist. I'm actually going to become a leader, and I'm going to be an owner and not an operator. And to do that, it's building the systems in. So as these doctors, either they own their clinics and they want to scale and do multiple clinics, or they want to, maybe they're doing real estate, but they're doing like a single family home here, a duplex over here, a fix and flip, or a short-term Airbnb. Either way, how are they going to take their business to the next level? How do they 10x themselves?
Yeah, so it's like I said, in terms of number one, understanding you have no limits. That's number one. I think your podcast is Limitless, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So number one, it's really fully understanding that you have no limits. And what does that mean? So obviously we're limited from the standpoint of you're a cardiologist. So you can't just go be a cardiologist. You've got to go to school, get the training and all of that. So once you've got that training, well, now you're not limited. You can do that to the best of your abilities that you have. And what we all need to understand is the only thing that limits us is what we know. And more importantly, what we don't know. That's the only limitations we have. So you need to get that education. You need to get that understanding of what it is that you want to do so that you can perform. And then once you understand that and apply that to the action, the hardest thing for people to decide what it is what they want to do. I mean, that's the hardest thing to do, is understand, what is it that you really want? What do I really want? Do I want to be a $1 billion company? You guys had the $1 billion assets under management goal. So the first thing we looked at was, okay, who do you need to become as an individual in an organization to reach that goal? Number one, decide what it is you want to do and be. Number two, decide who it is you need to be in your organization, what that needs to look like. And then number three, what are the 2 or 3 things that you need to be focused on every single day to really move the needle towards that goal? And that's, the biggest things. And it's really 3 simple things. What do you want to be? Who do you need to become to get there? And what do you need to be doing every day? And throw away everything else. Where most people, especially people in medical profession, you're used to doing everything yourself, so you can get caught up in all those little details that really aren't going to move the ball forward to where you need to go. You need to focus on the big picture, put the people and the systems in place to get you there, and then you focus on the 2 things or 3 things that you need to get there. So if you want to 10x your practice and grow multiple locations or your real estate investment business, you need deals and you need money. That's what you need in order to do that. So without the deals, without the money, you got nothing. That's all you should be focused on. And then really you should drill it down to where you're focused on the one thing and whatever fits your skill set the best. And for most people, it's, finding the money, putting the deals together, sourcing deals, underwriting, all that can be filled in very easily. But usually it's the finding the money and creating those relationships of the investment opportunities. That's the highest and best use of the operator's time. So it's really understanding those 3 key things that will get you there the fastest.
Yeah, I always say that, the greatest skill set of any entrepreneur is the ability to raise capital. And so like that if they could learn how to master that skill set, that's great. Another thing I've learned really is communication, learning to communicate effectively in social media, in, emails, in verbal communication, pitches, discussions with one-on-one with investors or patients or clients or partners.
And internally, the vision of the organization of where you want to go. As the leader, you have to be able to not only see it, and when I say see it, I mean literally see, what does that organization look like? What does the building look like? The people in that organization, what are you wearing? What are you driving? Where are you going? What does that deal look like you're going to do? You have to be able to visualize that. And then you need to be able to articulate that to your team. We want to be a $1 billion assets under management. We want Class A core assets, $50 to $100 million in these cities. This is what they look like. This is how we execute. And you got to see it, and you got to be able to communicate that to get the buy-in from the team. So, those are the elements that are extremely important when it comes to communication.
I want to get right into it. I want to add tremendous value to my listeners who are physicians, successful entrepreneurs, high income earners who want to go to the next level. This podcast was built on 3 themes. It's built on freedom, wealth, and human optimization. And the thing that caught my eye is you have this concept called supercharge your productivity with a 2-minute ritual to crush your to-do list in half the time, 6-hour focus. So let's get into that. What the heck does that mean? And how can I get some of that?
You mentioned my latest book. It's called the IZOD Method. IZOD stands for In the Zone on Demand, because many people think that being in the zone is just obviously for athletes. But, we all experienced it, but most often by chance, like, oh my God, I crushed my presentation, or I crushed my sales goals, or I just won this competition. And so we assume it's by chance, but no, we can actually acquire the skill to get in the zone on demand, turn it on and off, which means is we have 100% laser focused, and we can get a lot more things done in a small period of time. Because everybody heard, including your listeners, that 80% of the things are done in 20% of the time, right? So what if we can apply that 20% of the time where we are focused, when we are in the zone, whenever we want to do that? And so, in my latest book, I explain the steps to actually get into the zone on demand, but also it's a lot about biohacking, not just upgrading the body and objectively reversing our biological health or our lifespan, but upgrading our mindset. Because again, getting into the zone is also have to do a lot with mindset. And whether you're an entrepreneur, a doctor, a performer, an athlete, it applies to everybody who wants to go above and beyond, be the best that they can be.
So you really say a 2-minute ritual. What is it?
Ritual to me is a power routine. So to me, most power routines, have the same template, but we customize it based on my client or on my mentee. So whatever my power, I got 4 power routines: a morning routine, an evening routine, biohacking routine, and a dream routine, which is about my dreams and what I want to accomplish. So, many times I give those as templates to my mentees, but we got to make sure that we customize those based on what works for them. But ultimately, what we need to do with all those biohacks and routines is really making sure that routine or your routine is something that you can count on each and every time to get you into the zone and get you or deliver you the results that you want. And so it's more of a power routine. But when it comes to being productive, being busy, because most of your listeners are busy entrepreneurs or doctors, it's also about freeing up valuable time and making sure that everything is scripted, that you're in control of your agenda, your calendar, that you're not wasting, your time on projects that really don't serve your goals and your dreams, and the list goes on. So many times it's obviously about purpose and passion, but then also really getting or regaining control of your schedule, of your calendar, and having that plan, having those incremental steps, and really, being very effective and efficient on your daily activities also, so you can get those small incremental fulfillments that contribute to your greater goal and greater dreams.
So Dr. Mike, let's talk about productivity, focus, and freeing up valuable time. So you said scripted, intentional day, Pareto principle, meaning you're 80-20ing everything, so you're not wasting time doing nonsense activities. Give me something very tangible for my listeners so they can start optimizing their day like tomorrow.
Usually I ask many questions and we go from there, but here's some questions, right? When it comes to productivity, it's like, okay, how many meetings do you have tomorrow? I got 2 meetings. How long are they scheduled for? An hour each. And then my question would be, can you really not make a decision on the topic within 15 minutes? Why does it have to be an hour? Right? So now we suddenly clear up an hour and a half of time tomorrow already, because again, many times meetings are scheduled in hour increments. Let's schedule them in 15-minute increments, and then how many projects are you involved in? Let me think, 3 or 4. Okay. Which of those products do not contribute to your personal goals and dreams? Maybe this one not. So why you're involved? Well, a friend doctor of me asked me to help out. Well, maybe next time you got to say no. Maybe you got to get rid of that project because it's not helping you. It's helping somebody else fulfilling their dreams and lives. And it's not that we can't be helpful, but sometimes we really got to get into that laser focus on where we as individuals or as business owners, as executives want to be. And so then it goes into more, like time management, is what is the time of day that you perform the best, and where is your workspace? Where do you do your projects? Where do you work? Because it's amazing today to find out, Doc, when you ask people where they work, many times it's on the kitchen table. It's in in front of the TV. I mean, how can you be focused if you don't have a designated work area even? And that used to be, common sense, but today people just try to concentrate, in the middle of the living room, or, in cubicles where other people are constantly interrupting you, etc. So many times we got to go back to basics and assigning that specific or designated work area, closing the doors, letting other people knowing not to disturb you. And then also, of course, here's these devices that I'm holding up. We got to get control of our social media and our devices. If I want to focus and if I want to write a chapter of my book, this has got to go off. This has got to go in another room. Now, this is very helpful, obviously, this phone, because when I need Dr. Raja to ask him a question about biohacking, I can call him up, which is to my benefit. But when I'm focusing, I'm not going to let Dr. Raja interrupt me, because that would keep me off my game, right? So when I'm focusing, when I'm doing something, this needs to be off. And so there's hundreds and hundreds of little things that we can put in place to eliminate distractions and increasing that focus. And many of those are very easy, practical things. And then the next step would be, okay, now we got to work on our mindset. We got to work on upgrading our mind also. But that's another step. But you asked for a few practical things. Well, there's a few practical things we can implement tomorrow.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, Be phenomenal.